First of all, thank you for paying your attention and the sound listening. Now, let us start our session. Analytics. As you all must be aware that nowadays this is the word which is applicable in all the businesses in all professional fields. So why should HR be different? So being an HR professionals, as we all have witnessed the HR transformation journey, and I'm sure we understand the utility of the data analysis and dashboards. So for those who are new to these terms, it is the right time to understand where our panelists will explain you the concept in detail. So we request you all to please stay tuned with us. Today's session is being moderated by Mr. Naresh Chatija, who is the principal facilitator at Mentor Factory. In our panelists, we have a list of speakers, Mr. Devam Malhotra, who is a co-founder and COO of Zecardo Automotive Solutions. He is also a senior mentor, co-founder, and managing partner of Positive Vibes Consulting. Next, we have Mr. Rahul Sethi, who is the founder of ProTouch. We have Ms. Amrita Bhardwaj with us. She is the Senior Manager, HRM Strategy and Analyst at Tata Steels. Another, we have Abhilash, Mr. Abhilash Bodanapu. He is Principal Analyst, Global Lead, Capgemini. We have Mr. Debarun Mitra. He is Talent Analyst at American Express. And last, we have Mr. Abhay Dhumal, who is Manager Global HR Analytics at Clarion. So with this all, now hand over the session to Mr. Naresh Khatija to take it forward and not to take much of your time. Let's start the conversations. Over to you, Naresh.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you. Thank you, Payal. A warm welcome again to all the participants and, of course, our esteemed panelists. Okay. Well begun is half done. So we already well begun. Good. So I will go to Debarun Mitra. And the first question that I have is, what does an HR analytics mean? And how is it different from people analytics?
So HR analytics and people analytics are used interchangeably, but they're quite different. Let's talk about HR analytics first. It is the process of collecting and analyzing human resource data in order to improve an organization's workforce performance. So when we talk about HR data, so there are a lot of different type of HR data, but this method helps us to collect whatever data we have in the organization and use it to make better productivity for the organization. Now, when we talk about people analytics, so people analytics is mainly focused on people. So it can be or it cannot be directly related to HR. So people analytics we normally think might be a byproduct of HR analytics, but it is not. So when we use the term people analytics, it may be applied to customers in an organization and not necessarily to the employees in the organization. So I think that should clear a little bit of doubt that we have between these two terms. So we should not use it interchangeably. So they are two different terms. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Debarun. Let me go to Abhay Dhumal. Abhay, could you please tell us the difference between predictive and prescriptive HR analytics?
Okay. Yeah. So predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics are, in my opinion, just two stages of the analytics. So these terms are used a lot many times in today's HR analytics field or any other analytics field. So when it comes to predictive analytics, it's about predicting the outcomes or the predicting the future outcomes based on the historical data and the current data. So what we do is that we apply statistical models to the historical data and current data, and we try to find some trends and patterns. So that is about predictive analytics. So in predictive analytics, you can use different statistical methods like linear regression, logistic regression, multivariate regression, and there are many other statistical models which you can use to predict the future. So just to give you an example, in the HR context, you can predict on the organizational level how much headcount is required for the next year based on your business numbers, or what is the impact of salary increase on the employee retention. So this is at the organizational level, and at the individual level you can predict who's likely to leave, who will be the better performer, who will be the better leader in future. So these are some of the examples. And recently, due to unprecedented volumes of data and exceptional capabilities in statistical tools or analytical tools, there is a lot of development which is coming in the accuracy of the predictive capabilities of the organization. And when it comes to prescriptive analytics, it just takes predictive analytics to the next level. And there is interdependency between predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics. So prescriptive analytics is like recommending actions based on the data, and here it is like Netflix recommendations. So just like Netflix recommends you some movies or TV shows, uh, for example, L&D team can recommend some training programs based on the historical data, based on your career aspirations, or based on the trainings different people or in the similar role have taken in the organization. So that is the prescriptive analytics, and it is currently at the infancy stage, but likely to get very sophisticated in near future. So that is the prescriptive and predictive analytics. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Abhay. Thank you for such an insightful interprets. Okay, let me go to Abhilash Bodanapu now. I have a question for Abhilash. What are the key questions to consider before beginning a people analytics project?
Firstly, the core intent or the purpose of the project that you undertake, because uh, analytics, as itself, without a problem statement, you just can't get started. It's not some a plain descriptive analysis, or you throw some variables and then try to come up with some patterns. Now, you need to know what exactly that you want to address, which means you need to know the right sponsors for that, the leaders who can act upon it. When I say sponsorship, I don't exactly mean by, in terms of investment, because that's what people generally think. By sponsorship, what we, mean is someone who can give their time and have the ability to act upon, whatever the insights that you're going to come out with. So that's what is sponsorship. And of course, the technology, I mean, whether you have the right technology with you or not, or the right toolkits. And followed by that would be the ethics, which I would really like to emphasize upon. When HR analytics or people analytics, really started as a greenfield, we haven't really paid that much of attention to the ethical matters over there. But then as we grow more and more, the kind of models and the kind of, you can say even the exploitation that's happening right across the analytics spectrum, not just in the people side. So ethics is something that is coming out to be a strong dimension with GDPR in place. So the journey that we are taking, at least in our company, we are looking at the ethics charter, equivalent to the people analytics charter that we are trying to build. So yeah, these are the things that I would consider as really important.
Thank you, Abhilash. Let me go to Amrita Bhardwaj. Amrita, I have a question for you. How does HR analytics drive business value?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, HR analytics is all about unlocking the people equation. And people are the source of your business value and your competitive advantage. So, HR analytics is all about driving business value. So, I will just take a comparison between the pre and the post COVID. So, in the pre COVID, the focus was more towards controlling attrition, improving productivity, then what kind of trainings are we offering, and what are the effectiveness analytics and solutions will tell you. But I think the COVID times brought greater focus to a greater role of people analytics, where we were directly impacting the business continuity. For example, I work in a steel industry, and blast furnace is one area where it needs to be continuously monitored and have people but COVID had a potential to disrupt the blast furnace operation. So we brought up a COVID safety ecosystem fueled by a robust analytic engine to ensure workforce continuity at the blast furnace. So I think that is directly creating value for the business by ensuring that your most critical and core operations run even at the time of a pandemic. The other example I would like to give, which I have worked on, and it can be a good example of driving business value, is we have a lot of heavy equipment and fleet which operate in our mines, and we call it the fleet management system. So over there, the big data from that system joined with the HR master data, we have come up with a robust analytics engine to monitor the performance of the operators, both the behavioral and the technical. By technical, it's how much fuel they're using, how much tonnage they're getting. And by behavioral is like, are they taking extended coffee breaks, or have they come to office regularly? So that project has a direct impact on business value in terms of rupee crore, because it leads to fuel savings, and it is also impacting the sustainability in a very big way. So I think HR analytics or people analytics, as I may say so, has direct linkage with people value, the conventional topics of attrition, productivity, experience is still there, but there are newer streams emerging, which is directly linked to core business.
Thank you, Amrita. Okay, now I will go to Rahul Sethi. Rahul, I have a question for you. How is HR analytics shaping the future of human resources?
Yeah, thanks, Naresh, for asking that question, and wishing everyone here a very happy new year.
Thank you.
I think this, Naresh, to me, it has two parts. One is, what's the future of HR? IBM conducts a global CEO study every year. And one of the questions they pose to CEOs is, as per them, what is the most significant factor contributing to sustainable economic value? And guess what? 70% of CEOs says it's human capital. Wow. And that's going to define the way organizations will do business. Which means the HR strategy is going to decide the future of business strategies. So true. And if that is so, HR as a function will go through unprecedented change, in my view. Mm-hmm. Good part is many organizations are already using a lot of HR matrices, to influence how they recruit, how they engage, develop, retain, and even compensate their talent. Yeah. But as we leapfrog, I think HR analytics will take over a lot of critical HR decisions. To me, how it is going to shape, how HR analytics is going to shape the future of HR function, I think I would see it from three lenses. Yeah. The first lens is the way we are making decisions today. I think the decision making is a whole lot changing. Yeah. This is a function which was once driven and guided by instinct and intuition, is now beginning to use a lot of data and algorithm. And I train a lot of HR professionals, in the field of HR analytics. And, let me share a very interesting story. There was this HR guy who got trained under me. He was really excited, overwhelmed, went back to his organization. He was called in by the CEO to discuss a problem. CEO said, Mr. HR, we have this problem. There are this bunch of employees we have which are consistently underperforming. What do we do with them? And how do we really solve this problem? You know what he said? He was just out of an analytics program. He said, we may have to make some more people who are productive underproductive or less productive. CS said, what are you saying? He said, because I don't have enough sample size to really perform predictive analytics to find out the independent variables that are impacting dependent variable, which is performance in this case. Yeah. So, jokes apart, but HR is beginning, I would say beginning to use a lot of data and algorithm, which is good. And it's going to, kind of decide the way business is going to be driven. And, what happened between that CEO and HR there is quite independent. The other lens I would say is the lens of flexibility. I think flexibility is going to be the key ingredient the way businesses will be done in future. If you look at the year gone by, uh, two concepts have changed for sure. The workplace and the workforce. They will never have the same meaning again. Yeah, and with gig economy becoming over half of the pie of the total workforce, I think HR analytics will really enable the flexibility that is required for businesses to perform a lot better. I think that's the point number two. I think third one is the way we are looking at HR analytics today, or we are looking at the problem solving, as Abhay also rightly mentioned. The way we are looking to solve these problems, and most of them are still today called projects. And I could hear some of the voices where we have to conduct project. I was consulting one of this organization in Bangalore, and they called me over to say, we have this people issue, and how do we really solve this? Why don't we take a 3-month project and solve it analytically? I said it will never get solved, because analytics is a process. It improves over a period of time, and if you're dealing with human beings, it better have to be a process rather than project. And I think that is where analytics will bring in a lot of structure to problem solving. Because in today's world, we don't even know what data is available, what's relevant. And as per one of the PwC report, there is a 80% gap in what data is required and what is currently available to perform proper analytics in the field of HR. But the good news is, as one of the Deloitte report I was reading, that 35% of the organization are taking HR analytics very, very seriously over the next few years. I think that's a good sign for overall HR. And I think this is how HR analytics will completely change the shape of the HR functions.
Good. I mean, it's a good number. 35% of the organizations are taking up HR analytics. It's definitely a decent number to start with. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Rahul. Okay, let me go to Devam Malhotra. Devam, could you please tell us what kind of data is required for HR analytics?
Hi, Naresh. Thank you for asking this question, and wish everyone in the audience a very happy new year. I think it's an important question, but it's a question that can't be looked at on a standalone basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I will sort of quickly relate back to what the other panel members have also mentioned. Starting with Abhilash, who sort of touched upon the subject of what should be the agenda for HR analytics. And having consulted organizations in the past, I think what's important to have, and I'll sort of correlate to what Rahul also mentioned a few minutes ago, is the fact that it can't be a one-off project. The agenda needs to obviously have short-term as well as long-term goals attached when it comes to HR analytics. And only after that is set is when the question of data sources and what kind of data really emerge. Now, when we look at data per se, you got publicly available data and you got your internal data. So when we look at publicly available data, it's essentially research reports or some benchmark reports or certain surveys that have been carried out by third-party organizations, that organizations can use. Internal data, obviously, I would like to sort of structure into 3 broad buckets. Every organization has its own HRIS data, which has data, surrounding the demographics of employees, which has performance management data, L&D data, recruitment data, all of that. And depending on what problem that you're trying to solve for, can be used at a given point in time. Along with that, there are certain other HR data, for instance, employee travel data or wellness data, or any internal employee survey that has been carried out that can be used. Now, both of these data sets has to be used in conjunction with business data, something that Amrita also mentioned, when she talked about how HR analytics is supposed to drive business value. Because at the end of the day, whatever you're analyzing needs to answer a specific business problem or a business question that is being investigated. And therefore, the HR data, along with business data, and when I talk about business data, it's essentially CRM data, sales data, marketing data, productivity data. All of that essentially comes together and answers the question. So yeah, to your question, Naresh, my view is essentially this. So first, frame the agenda that leads towards data sources and the actual data points that you need to collect, and using all of that in conjunction with your core business data will help you solve the problem.
Okay. Thank you, Devam. Okay, that brings us to the end of round one. We will resume round two with a 5-minute introduction by Payal. So over to Payal now.
Yeah, thank you, Naresh. So before we move on to round two, we would just like to take you through a small introduction about Amrita Devi Foundation. So I would request Mamta to please take us through this presentation.
Hi everyone, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So myself Mamta Sethi, I'm working as a volunteer for Amrita Devi Foundation. And first of all, wish you all a very happy new year. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to represent Amrita Devi Foundation, which is an NGO working to support people in Uttarakhand. So Amrita Devi Foundation was established to help girls and women, particularly in Uttarakhand, and provide them skill development opportunities, and started thinking about employment opportunities for them also. As you all know that Uttarakhand is a hilly area in North India, and of course the life out there is very tough, and that is the reason people are moving and migrating to metro cities in search of better life and better jobs for their families and themselves. We as Amrita Devi Foundation trying to create that opportunities in Uttarakhand itself, so that people don't have to migrate, and we are doing it by focusing particularly on girls and women, because we feel that if we empower and make women in Uttarakhand independent, they will be able to support their family very well. So now let me introduce you all with our team members. Payal, can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. So these are all our team members who are putting their efforts in the background to achieve the objective we have set as an NGO. All these people here are our volunteers who help us to support this mission. So let me talk about the initiatives which we have worked on in past 1 year. Can we have the next slide, please? We have donated school bags, shoes, clothes, and toys to 500 kids in Uttarakhand in different government schools. During the COVID time, we also supported 200 plus families. We have also sponsored digital marketing course for 10 students in Uttarakhand. Now we are planning to start Amrita Devi Women's Skill Development Institute with 3 centers, which will be open in 2021 to provide free vocational courses to girls and women, and also we will find employment opportunities for them. So we are going to talk about these initiatives in our upcoming slides. As you all can see in the slide, that in the last year we have started this initiative, and we have supported 500 students who were provided school bags, toys, etc. In COVID time, we have started with 3 main initiatives. Can we have the next slide? Yeah, we have started with the three main initiatives in COVID time. First, we educated the villagers in Uttarakhand, and we make them aware about what are the precautions they need to take during COVID time. We also supported 200 plus families by giving them a grocery kit, which was enough for them to have a meal for 1 week. We also collaborated with the women in village, and we started training them how to create masks at home. So you can all see the glimpse of the work we have done during COVID time, and also we were covered by the local media in Uttarakhand. You can all see the glimpse of these works. So this is our another initiative where we have sponsored the education of 10 students in Uttarakhand on digital marketing. The objective behind this was to make people learn the skills in digital era and to create employment opportunities using the skills they have acquired. This program is under the process and is about to get finished very soon. We have also donated 10 laptops to the students to complete their education in digital marketing. Now, about our upcoming initiative, we as a foundation has decided to focus more on skill development and employment opportunities for girls and women. For that, we are establishing Amrita Devi Women's Skill Development Institute across Uttarakhand. We are taking a baby step and we are going to start some centers in 2021 in remote areas in Uttarakhand, where we have a aim to train 120 girls and women in a year on vocational trainings like tailoring, beauty therapist, computer operator, digital marketing. And a good thing to share with all of you is that we have already started with two of the training centers in village Guguti and village Prathola on 20th December 2020. Payal, can we have the next slide? Yeah. So we have started with these two centers in village Guguti and village Prathola, and 10 students in each center are enrolled and doing their course in tailoring there. They have already started with their course. So if you wish to be a member or a volunteer at Amrita Devi Foundation, you can join us and you can support it any way you can. I'll share the registration link about this membership on chat box. Please visit if you are interested in becoming any volunteer or member, or if any way, in any way, if you want to join us, if you want to do anything for this cause, you can join us by becoming a member or volunteer. And in this cause, we need support from all of you. So hence, I urge all of you to support us in this noble cause by donating and supporting a girl child. If you want to help us, you can donate any amount you wish to donate. You can go through the details and you can sponsor education of one girl or woman. And the details are here. You can donate us by Paytm or you can directly donate us in our bank account. I'll share all these details on the chat box also. And we have our social media handle, Facebook account. You can reach out to us and you can share your views, or if you want to have if you want to become a member, if you want to join us, you can join from there also. So I'll share all the details on chat box after this presentation. I hope that you guys will contribute from your side in this noble cause. And thank you very much on behalf of Amrita Devi Foundation. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mamta, for this introduction, and I am sure that people will definitely come forward to this noble cause. So over to you, Naresh, once again to please continue with the round two.
Thank you. Thank you, Payal. Thank you, Mamta. Okay, so let's begin the round two. Okay, Devaram, could you please tell us what is the significance, what is the importance of HR analytics?
Thanks again for the question, Naresh. So, unfortunately, raw data on its own cannot actually provide any useful insight. It would be like looking at a large spreadsheet full of numbers and words and just being clueless. So, without any particular direction, the data appears quite meaningless. But once it is organized, compared, and analyzed, this raw data would definitely provide us some useful insight. This can help us, answer a few questions like what patterns can be revealed in employee turnover? How long does it take to hire employees? What amount of investment is needed to get employee up to full productive speed? Which of our employees are not most likely to leave within this year? These kind of questions. So once we have data-backed evidence, it means that organization can focus on making the necessary changes and improvements to plan for the future initiatives. So like my fellow panelists, Rahul, Amrita, and Devam, they pointed out that these all factors need to be analyzed and thought upon and acted upon so that, the impact...
आप टीवी ऑन कर लो और होमवर्क भी करना है तेरा.
Can we have that person on board, please?
Yes.
So the impact it has on the business is really important for us to understand, because that impact will shape the goal and the moving forward of the organization. So this is something which is highly important, and HR is normally, I would say, till now, now things are changing, but till now it has been neglected a lot and thought that it does not impact business directly a lot. But these kind of data points and evidence will definitely help the HR fraternity and the HR function as a whole to directly impact and show how it is impacting the business. And lastly, wishing everyone a very happy new year and stay safe. Thanks.
Uh,
Naresh, you are muted.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Devarun. So, Devarun, can we say that HR analytics is going to be one of the most important aspects of human resources in the days to come?
Absolutely, absolutely, it will be, and it will definitely take the HR function to the next level. It is definitely taking it to the next level, and people have to realize that even if they're not adapting at this current point of time to HR analytics, they have to, because it is the future of HR as well.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Devarun. So over to Abhay. Abhay, you're talking a lot about data here, and so could you please throw some light on the significance of ethics and data privacy in HR analytics?
Sure, Naresh. So in the earlier round, Abhilash already has emphasized on importance of ethics and data privacy in people analytics or HR analytics projects. So in my opinion, if there is anything more important than data in HR analytics project, that is data privacy and ethics. Why? Because we are using personal data for all our HR analytics projects, and that makes it very vulnerable for the misuse of the data that is going into different models and different projects that we are doing in HR. So with the rise of GDPR, which has already been implemented in Europe in 2018, GDPR is General Data Protection Regulations, and similar type of bill on personal data privacy is likely to get passed in India as well. So we are just waiting like when it will come into the picture. But yeah, that will have a huge impact on the HR analytics projects, because the data privacy and ethics, they are having direct impact on the success or the results of the HR analytics projects. So let me give you two examples which are very recent case studies in HR analytics. So the first one is the recruiting tool that Amazon had implemented a couple of years back. So they had to scrap that tool just because it was biased towards the woman employees or woman applicants. So Amazon being such a huge organization which is backed by a great team of data scientists, and it is also sponsored by a lot of investment, if that organization can fail in data privacy and ethics, then anyone can fail. Second one is HM, I'm sorry. So they were fined 35 million euros under the GDPR, just because they saved some personal data of the employees, like the medical data as well, without the knowledge of the employees. So that caused such a heavy fine on them because they did not disclose it and they did not follow the ethical guidelines. So that is why it is very important for all the HR professionals to follow data privacy and ethics guidelines at all the stages of the HR analytics project. So that is just one example of how it can impact your how it can impact the success of your projects. So just to give you some guideline on what type of questions you should ask yourself before starting any HR analytics project. So you can ask a couple of questions like how can I balance the interest of employee and employer and employee while initiating or while conducting the HR analytics project. Secondly, what type of transparency and fairness I should have during this HR analytics projects. At each of the stage, can I have the right checks whether I'm following the guidelines or not? So these are some of the questions the team should ask themselves before beginning or before starting any of the project. And in the coming years, as the data privacy and ethics laws get stricter, it is going to be difficult for HR professionals, or it will be quite cumbersome to prove themselves and to add value to the business. So that's my take on the ethics and data privacy, Naresh. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Abhay. Thank you, Abhay. So to just to add to that, so if can we say that an HR analytics professional need to also be aware of the local legislations and local laws prevailing in that particular country?
Definitely, because we are using the personal data, and you're already aware that personal data is getting misused and that is on the rise. So it is very important. So once the personal data privacy rule comes into the picture for even for India, it is going to be very useful for the HR professionals to know each and every beat of it. So just like European organizations, they are under the GDPR, and there are courses or there are trainings that they are doing to, so that each and every HR professional, not every HR professional, but each and every employee is aware about data privacy regulations, and they do not fall prey to any misuse of data. So it's going to be very crucial in the near time.
Right. Thank you, Abhay. Thank you, Abhay. So, Abhilash, could you please tell us or share an example with us where the use of people analytics made a business impact?
Yeah. So when we started off with the people analytics as a function, so one of the things that occurred was COVID, obviously. So in our employee engagement portals and all, we saw a huge influx of comments, which is a very unstructured data, but then there is a huge wealth and emotions or sentiment sitting out there. So how do we harness this information in a logical way using the methodologies that we have in analytics, and then make some sense out of it? So that was the real question ahead of us, and also to design a new normal, whatever that is, because people are still figuring out the definition for new normal, if it's going to happen. But how do we prepare for that, the future, and what kind of hybrid models that we should work at? And if we take such kind of actions, then what are the already reactions that we see in the employees, or what is the anticipation that the employees are having, expressing in terms of the comments? So we asked a set of questions in terms of, how exactly they're feeling during the lockdown period and right after that. And what is it that one thing that they expect, when, the offices open up, and, what is there on top of their mind? So, as you can imagine, it's a very subjective information. And a lot of times, so far analytics, it's been, I would say, an easy journey with the asterisk over there, because we have been dealing with the numerical data, which is fine. But right now, the kind of semi-structured and the unstructured data that we're trying to deal with is what is really, testing the capability of HR, and also, how we can position this with the board of directors or anyone, who is really defining the strategy over there. So the project that we have taken with this bunch of hypotheses was to study, what were the emotions over there, and we use some certain NLP techniques, be it topic modeling or entity extraction or the sentiment analysis, to understand what is exactly there on top of the mind of the people, and what is the intensity of a particular topic, and if we take a certain action, then how the different demographics would react. What we have seen is, to just share a insight. It's the younger people, who are more concerned about the safety than the older generation when the COVID happened. So which was an revelation for us. And the people who are having kids at home, they definitely need a different kind of policy, and not just a straight, one size fits approach kind of thing. Another insight what we have seen is relationships and communication, is becoming really important. But not really embraced by the younger workforce, and which is what you see on why the entire industry is trying to design new policies for the freshers, vis-a-vis the people who are in the mid brackets versus the ones, who are really out there. So which gave us some sense of direction in terms of, how the hybrid working, model can look like, and when we roll it out, how exactly it will be taken upon. So to put it in context, it's very important, going back to the first question, what exactly is the purpose that you are trying to answer, and if you take, if you come up with the insight, do you have the capability to act? Otherwise your insight is just an overhead, and it will really result in the lack of credibility of the people analytics function. And like Rahul was rightly mentioning, it's no longer about the project, but then how can you turn the project into a productization kind of, or industrialization kind of approach, which can set the stone in HR for to take up any kind of problem.
Lovely. Thank you, Abhilash. Okay. So, Amrita, could you please tell us what kind of tools are used or can be used for HR analytics? And if you could also give a brief on their differences.
Sure, thank you for the question. So the HR analytics tool, I would also want to mention about them from the very basics. So the very basic, which is used by all of us, is Microsoft Excel. So that is the most basic form of analytics. And if you have limited sets of data, you can draw a lot of insights from just using Excel or some add-ins in Excel. The next part of analytics is, which is gaining importance, especially in HR, is the visualization tool. So what Excel does is it crunches the data and it gives you some insights which you can put in a presentation, or you can take it on email to your audience. But what a visualization tool like a Tableau or a Power BI will help you is like more towards real-time data, analyzed, simplified, visualized for easy to understand for the intended audience. And also it will help the audience to interact with the data. For example, they want to see for particular business units, for particular levels in the organization, they can play with the data and you prepare the backend and they interact with the dashboard. So that is the visualization part of it. Then comes the advanced analytics part of it, where we are talking of big data, huge amounts of data, and predictive analytics. Then comes in programming languages and platforms such as R and Python. And these are essentially scripts, and there are libraries available which you can import and you can run on the data and generate insights. They also have visualization modules, but then Tableau and Power BI are the more established players in terms of visualization. And there are many new tools emerging. But just like when we build a house, for building the different parts of the house, we'll be using a different set of tool. Similarly, for any analytics problem, it's important to understand that what tool do we need for the particular problem. Something may be solved just by Excel, for something you need Python, and for something Tableau may be the best suited tool. So as an HR analytics professional with experience, we get to know that what is the right kind of tool that is needed. Now, the important thing is to have the complete optimized suite of analytics tools, because like Abhilash rightly said that, this trust-based emotional analytics of HR, so that requires a sophisticated kind of tools and also the competence to run those tools. Whereas the basic day-to-day HRBP, they can learn some basics of Python, some basics of Excel, some advanced Excel, and answer some of the business problems. So the importance is understanding what do you want to answer, and then curating your analytics solution and plugging in the right tools.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Amrita. Thank you a lot for because most of the time it so happens that there are so many tools available in the market, and then we need to know which tool being the best. Now, thank you for your inputs. Very nice. Say, okay, what is it that I want to find out, or what action do I want to initiate? Based on that, I can go ahead and pick up the right tool for HR analytics. Lovely. Thank you. Okay, so let me go to Rahul. Rahul, could you please tell us how does HR analytics bring change in the current role of an HR professional? Rahul, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So I think that's an interesting perspective, and I think answer somewhere lies in what Abhilash was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If we reflect back, I think it's a amazing case that he was discussing with all of us. And I would like to bring your attention back to what he was talking about sentiment analysis. He talked about a lot of stuff in terms of which is much beyond the current scope of what HR is doing. He was talking about performance, he was talking about safety, he was talking about well-being. These are some of the areas where uh, you know people with use of analytics are venturing into, which was never dreamt before. And I think, to me, the role of HR will change in a manner that it will break the departmental silos. And most of the organization will work as a one cohesive unit. Abhilash talked, amazing stuff about, variables like, demographic variable like age, younger people versus older people, people with kids, maybe people with dags and cats and dogs. You don't know what variables will connect where, and a lot of organizations are using, these specific instances or specific insights to draw a lot of insights about their workforce, and in order to really increase organizational performance and productivity. Organizations like Walmart, Nissan, Google has done some phenomenal work in the way they even interview people. Not only with use of analytics, they are discovering new channels of recruiting people, but the responses of participants in the interview or the candidates in the interview gives a lot of insights about the kind of attributes that person will bring on the table. Let me give you a very interesting example that happened in Google. When they were interviewing this candidate, and he was a whiz kid. At the end of the interview, a typical question obviously is, "You have any question for us?" His first response was, "Can I take a selfie?" Yeah, so they say, "Sure, why not? And do you have another question for us?" He said, "Can I bring my cats to work?" Now, this specific insight they picked up and really built the insight to say, what is this guy's strengths could be? He could be, maybe he likes animals more than human beings. And these are just simple examples where it says that how analytics, how the information that you capture, and Devarun also talked about raw data in itself has no meaning, but how do you use this information and work around it to really unlock the things that has never been even thought in the world earlier. And I think that is how a few areas where HR role will change. There are some more great examples people have done. UPS and some of the other logistic organization have done some phenomenal work in the area of driver safety. They have done a lot of analytics to reduce the working hours for drivers. They have dramatically reduced their accident rate. They have used analytics combined with AI to really figure out and raise alarm when a driver could be feeling sleepy. They've used a lot of sensors, better route planning to ensure that he's spending lesser time on the road and more time with family. Now, is it a role of HR? I think it's a business role. And Avi also talked about how are we really defining those problems and how we are really maximizing. Other stuff, there was another message on the chat, which how do you really increase the performance and measure the performance in flexible or work from anywhere kind of environment. I think Mphasis is a great example there, where they've done some phenomenal stuff in terms of how do you really measure, engage, and reward performance when in a scenario where you may, as Amrita also said, that her role is to permanently work from home. And how do you really engage with those employees whom you possibly will never meet in person? Yeah? And how do you really re-engineer your entire HR performance measurement system to really reward and recognize those people? And I think some of the way these organizations will progress will completely redefine the way HR is working today and HR will be working in times to come. L&D, for example, over the last 2 or 3 years, the kind of work that has happened in the area of gamification, which is again analytics powered by, topped up with AI, brought in a lot of challenge, competitiveness, which today's generation really love, and as a method to learn new skills and develop new areas. IBM again has done a lot of sentiment analysis to engage their employees. For example, one of the things that they figured out in one of these sentiment analysis to say employees who are taking breaks with with their friends are friends at work are turning out to be more productive, better engaged, and higher retention rates rather than people who are taking breaks alone. And how do they create an environment so that people are taking breaks in along with the people they like, and they restructure their break schedules. I think there's some great examples which was never possible with analytics. And I always used to see, and there's another organization which figured out how every organization have those folks who in those sutta breaks have only one thing to discuss. यार मैं छोड़ दूंगा यार अगले कुछ महीनों में मैं छोड़ दूंगा यार.
Right.
If you look at, they are the one who are staying back, and all the good guys around him. And how do you really use those information to bring the entire magic of analytics together? I think Naresh, to me, the way I see it is, with all that being discussed today and around HR analytics, it is not a question if, but when HR will become the nucleus of the entire business strategy.
So it will also have a huge impact. That's what we are seeing, that HR professionals' role is going to be expanding. It's going to be more challenging. It's going to be more involving in the major decisions. Thank you, Rahul. Okay, let me go to Devan. Devan, now let's please enlighten us on what are the skill sets required, what are the competencies required by an HR analytics professional.
Devam, you're muted.
Devam, you're muted.
Yeah. I think it's a very interesting question, Naresh. And I'll sort of go back to my management consulting days. What is it that we used to do? I mean, we used to get called in by organizations to solve a particular business problem. I think data and analytics has been, core competency of any management consultant. I mean, we work with a lot of data, unstructured, structure. We do all the data massaging to, generate insights that otherwise people could not really generate and, provide recommendations to organizations. So the way I look at this was, it was almost like a build, operate, transfer kind of a model. So we used to build certain capabilities by going into an organization. We would do pilot projects to showcase initial success. And we would then transfer those built capabilities to internal stakeholders in the organization so that the change is sustainable and can continue. I think the way I look at HR analytics, as a field and specifically for professionals, I think the role that they're going to start playing is now more of an internal consultant. And therefore, for me, the core competencies or the skill sets that some of these professionals would be akin to a management consultant, therefore. So anyone who is wanting to really set his or her career, in HR analytics, firstly needs to should have really strong business acumen. They should be in a position to understand business really well. Going back to Rahul's point that he made towards the end of his question, where he sees HR being a nucleus to drive business strategy, and I think anyone in the field of HR analytics needs to understand the business really well. I think on top of that, good sound knowledge of HR will always help. I think that's number 2 for me. Number 3, the way I look at it is data analysis. I think that's a no-brainer. It's given. Any HR analytics professional is going to be working with a lot of unstructured, huge volumes of data. I think how do you structure that? How do you, sort of bring it all together for the purpose of analysis is important. The fourth competency, Naresh, for me would be relationship management. I think to any HR analytics, whether it's a project that you undertake or whether it's an assignment that you undertake, I think understanding who's going to be the consumer of that result is very important. Who's driving that change in the organization is very important, and therefore, an HR analytics professional needs to be capable of having cross-functional relationships with people really well. Fifth, for me, would be around consultative communication, because it's not just about communicating data, right? You've got to storyboard it. You've got to story tell the data, and I think that is where it then gets crafted into actionable strategies that can be implemented to drive people agenda. So I think consultative communication for me is extremely important. Finally, I think some knowledge of HR systems and implementation, at least in my experience, I've seen the big change management, initiatives impacting larger organization, in a great manner. So I think for me these would be some of the key skills and competencies that would be required for any HR analytics professional.
Thank you, Devam. Good. So let's take some questions from the audience as well. Now, I'm going to open this questions is for all of the our speakers. So whosoever wishes to go ahead and answer that question, please go ahead. So the first question is, how does HR analytics work for recruitment? I request the panelists to let me know who's going to take this question. How does HR analytics work for recruitment?
Yeah.
Devam,
Yeah,
Rahul,
Naresh,
who-
I can go on this.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So talent acquisition, in itself, the kind of analytics that is happening, or the startups that are mushrooming in the space of talent acquisition, if you can just go on search, is really a lot. In fact, it takes about some 40% of the overall HR analytics market, keeping the workforce planning aside. So, what can you do over there? If you just look at your funnel, the recruitment funnel, which has, I would say at least 10 stages over there, right from the application to the, time that someone joins you. So what can you do over there? I mean, if you have the right question, let's say, I want to improve my offer to joining ratio, which is the struggling problem in India. So you take the demographic variables and the kind of historical stuff that is available, from looking at your last 1 year or 2 years of data. Right now, I think it's a little funny because all the patterns are really changing for the last 6 to 9 months. Those patterns are no longer valid. That what used to happen before 2020. So maybe you can take the last 1 year of data, look at the people who have joined you versus the ones who have got dropped out, at what level and at what compensation, at what demographics, and then you can come up with the predictive models which can say that if you roll out offer for this specific cohort, I'm not talking about an individual, I'm talking about a cohort, because that's what the GDPR is emphasizing upon. You cannot say Abhilash is going to be quitting from the system with 80% of the probability. You can't speak that language. You have to say that this specific cohort with this kind of behaviors are most likely to attract, or most likely or not to join. So you can identify those cohorts, looking at the demographics, and then redefine your hiring strategy. Or some of the things that we have done a couple of years back is to introduce a joining bonus mechanism where the cohorts are really in a on the wall kind of thing, where they are not going to join, because the people who are going to join you, or the cohorts who are going to join you, you don't have to make any investment. And the people who are not going to join you, again, you don't have to make investment, because anyways they're not going to join you. It's the people who are on the wall is what you need to tap, and that's what something analytics can offer.
Okay, thank you, Abhilash. So, okay, let me take the next question. The question is open for all our panelists. Okay, how can productivity or effectiveness of employee be measured in a work from home or a flexible setup? I repeat, how can productivity or effectiveness of an employee be measured in a work from home or flexible setup? Okay, esteemed panelists, who would like to take this question?
Yeah, I can take it.
Thank you,
Naresh.
Amrita.
Yeah. So with this is a very interesting question, and it is the question I think all of us on the panel faced when the pandemic set in. So the approach that we have as HR professionals is being empathetic because and driving trust. So I think analytics is the biggest enabler for a trust-based culture where you do not go into micromanaging people, do not go into what breaks are they taking and when are they logging in, logging out. What you try to do is you just try to look at any outliers in your data who are very, very different from the rest of the organization. So try to find out that what is that, because if you see that one person is continuously working and it has the risk of burnout, or a cohort has, so then you try to find that what is causing that kind of a working pattern rather than getting into the details of everybody and everyone and their work schedules and the productivity and the working patterns. For example, you can go and look out of one of the solution that Microsoft has come out with. It's called Workforce Analytics. So it gives a complete view of what is the usage of the Office 365 data, how are the meetings happening, because the meetings did significantly go up in COVID. So what is the effectiveness of those meetings? So can we as an organization come up with certain meeting guidelines that you do not have meetings beyond 2 hours? Or you start a meeting and end a meeting with an agenda, have what is the optimal number of people who should be attending a meeting. So these kind of analytics tools are available, and they were always available, but I think they have become even more important now with the onset of the pandemic. And the second part is the blended workforce, because people were traveling earlier to the offices. They are no longer traveling, and that travel time is saved, and most probably that gets naturally incorporated in the cycle of your work. So I think there is a lot to do with only spotting the outliers and coming up with policies to avoid burnout and enable engagement, and that will lead to enhanced productivity.
Thank you, Amrita. Okay, let me take
Yeah,
one
I
more
guess,
question here. Sorry.
Naresh, I would like to add something here. So,
Yes, Amrita.
I mean, there are many tools which can measure the productivity or the efficiency of the employees. But one of the tool which comes to my mind, one of the what I would say, it is organization network analysis, which can play a big role while measuring this type of productivity or efficiency, wherein the purpose is not to micromanage everyone but to understand which are the groups or which are the business units which are working beyond their regular working hours, and which are the groups which are not that much productive. So this one tool can really be very, very important.
Thank you, Abhay. Okay, I have got one more question pertaining to organization culture. How can HR analytics help building a culture of an organization? I think Rahul has already said yes to it. So if you could just share your thoughts, Rahul.
Yeah. So I think from a culture point of view, I think it will dramatically change with role of HR analytics. As Amrita talked about micromanagement, I think it will move from micromanaging. So any technology or any use of analytics will only get embraced with a simple question: what is in it for me? And if employees believe that this action is going to benefit me, it's going to enhance my productivity, I am evaluating myself rather than my boss is evaluating me, which flips the entire situation from micromanaging to trust and empathy that Amrita spoke about. It has to be enabled in a manner, especially in a work from home or work from anywhere environment where you are not next to your supervisor or a manager or a trainer. You're pretty much on your own, and the best possible method is virtual, where you are having some Zoom or meetings and things like that. In those situations, you have to use technology to really build, provide that environment to the to that employee where he's able to, make that 1% improvement every day, with the use of information and data that is being culled out in a very different perspective. I think that, as Devarun said, the data is same, the information is same. How you're able to flip it around to enable, and you will see any technology, any HRIS or any other method that you have seen get embraced if it is make life easy for an employee. If you can make that attendance on a press of a button, if he can apply for that leave on a press of a button, or if he can put up that claim, he will start adopting that technology. I think same will go with analytics. If you really want to build the culture of analytics, you have to ensure that how it is going to be useful for that employee. The simple question is, what is in it for me? And if that gets answered, I think the culture gets built around that.
Thank you, Rahul.
And I think, Naresh, I'll just quickly add on to this as well.
Yes, please.
More importantly, I think how does it get weaved into the strategy? I think the whole idea is we should not just analyze things for the sake of analyzing. Not every little nitty-gritty needs to be analyzed and reported back to everyone. I think we need to keep the focus on the larger vision of the organization, because with analytics, what happens is it becomes a very evidence-based decision making. I think somebody in the audience also asked a question of how can HR analytics lead to better decision making. One moves away from gut feels to more evidence-based decision making, where a fact is a fact. You really can't challenge it. So I think keep the larger picture, keep the larger goal in mind in terms of what your people strategy needs to be like, and then have analytics around it so that it can work for the benefit of the entire organization.
Thank you, Devan. Just to add just 2 words to it. So basically avoid paralysis of analysis. Thank you. Okay, let me take one more question. Can statisticians replace HR professionals when it comes to HR analytics?
Can I take that?
I repeat, can statisticians replace HR professionals when it comes to HR analytics?
Can I take that?
So
Okay.
in one word, it is the answer is no, because the skill set is entirely different. I mean, surely statisticians can augment the performance of HR analytics teams, and obviously some statistical expertise is required, but there is no question of one replacing the other. Thank you.
Just to add on to Abhay, if a pathologist can replace a doctor, then statistician can replace HR analytics. Which is practically not possible, because what Deven said, that you need domain knowledge.
Right.
It is not about, end of the day, everything started with 0 and 1. Everything, the base of everything in the world is mathematics, right? But if you don't have that domain knowledge, that's what doctor brings in, knowledge of human body, and he know what tests to be performed. If pathologist can replace a doctor, statistician can replace, with due respect to both the professions, but those two are different professions. Yeah, Deven said, you need domain knowledge, you need change management capabilities, along with analytics to make the entire thing work. It is not only about analytics.
So, I mean, I look at it this way, that probably both sets of profiles could probably be working together in the same HR analytics function. So you would have data scientists or statisticians, who will be just really good at numbers, crunching out, insights, give them unstructured data, and they'll, craft a beautiful, structured set of analysis around it. I think, but you also require domain expertise to, convey those results in a manner that can be digested by the organization at large. So I do see them working together. It's not about replacing one with another.
I would like to
just to add to Devam.
Yes.
I
Yes,
absolutely
Devam.
agree with Devam, because right now the hottest job in the market is not data science, it's data translator, okay, or the results translator. So it's someone who would work together. And if you have just seen the Insight 222, which is the pioneer organization in people analytics, there are new set of roles that are opening up, which could be a behavioral scientist or a survey manager, because what can be done with a bunch of analyses can be done by asking the right question. So a survey management is again coming out to be a huge skill set over there. So it's not just the plain data science, that we are hearing right now. There are a huge set of other, profiles that are opening up. And as Devam rightly pointed out, to create that people analytics ecosystem, you got to bring, all these skills together and harness it.
Lovely. Thank you, Abhilash. Let me take one more question.
So,
How has HR analytics evolved or changed before pandemic and during pandemic? So request to all the panelists, whoever wants to take the question, and maybe other panelists can add on to it. So I repeat, how has HR analytics evolved or changed before pandemic and during pandemic? Debrun, Rahul, Devam, Amrita, Bhay, Vilash.
Yes, so you're getting more questions,
Yeah, I'm just in last question. I
No,
know.
not this one. I'm saying
uh,
the people analytics teams are getting off late, more questions than it was before,
Okay.
and the new
Okay.
set of questions. So the typical questions, earlier used to be around attrition or, can I increase the joining ratio? Can I increase the productivity and all of that? But then with right now, like I was giving an example, the leadership really wants to know what exactly people are thinking, and if we take a specific action, how exactly they're going to react. And you don't have that much of latency to take an action and then observe the reactions and then correct yourself. There is simply not such a kind of luxury that you have. So which means the kind of data which has never been utilized, like Debarun was pointing out in the beginning, has it's something that really surfaced at the moment, and where you can harness and then come out with those kind of recommendations that would really impact the business. So the demand is simply unimaginable right now. So we are increasing the team size like anything. So if that answers your question, in fact, Insight 222 also points out that almost 60% of the people analytics functions are growing. So yeah, that's the answer for it.
I think if I can just add on to what Abhilash also said, I think
Yes, please.
And I've been speaking to people working in the industry. There is a lot of demand for HR analytics, simply because I think post pandemic it's got policy impacts. Organizations are consistently relooking at their policies to see how they can support the workforce going forward. And I think all those policy decisions are extremely strategic, and wherein a lot of insight is therefore needed to make those changes really happen. So rather than making them off the cuff or by the gut, people are relying more on a quick survey result or some sort of data that can generate certain insights. A lot of companies in fact floated surveys when work from home started off, and I think some of those responses have actually shaped organizational policies over the last 6 to 8 months now. So yeah, I think the role, to sort of sum it up, I think it's going to be more strategic going forward, and which is a good thing.
Thank you, Devam.
Just
I've got
adding
this,
to
yes.
what Devam just said. So we could classify, four broad areas in HR metrics for which it can be evaluated to manage crisis in this new normal. So first would be managing the employee cost, then employee availability, then employee communication and well-being, then also redeployment of them. So these factors are what are majorly highlighted and majorly worked upon, first of all, I think, in the new normal. So these are areas which were initially probably not looked into in that much detail, but right now, because of this pandemic crisis, I think they are being more explored on.
Okay, thank you, Devan. I've got an interesting question. This is probably the last question that I would pose it to panelists. Okay, there's this question of how to tackle challenges of biasness that come with skewed data or distorted data, especially when organizations do not have huge historical data.
Yeah, so in my opinion, it largely depends on the data. So when you are not having enough data to support something, then you should rethink of beginning initiating that particular project. That's my very honest opinion. because data is something which goes into your data models, which which is supporting your machine learning algorithms. So it has the volume of the data, and the accuracy of the data has direct impact on the outcome. So just to avoid the garbage in garbage out situation, you need to have enough data, or the accurate data. That's my very honest opinion.
Just to add on to what Abhay said, I think there are two parts to it. One is if it is a distorted data or a biased data, I think there is the right technologies that are available to handle that. I think that challenge is more addressable. I think the bigger challenge is when you don't have data and you have to build from scratch. I think that needs a lot of patience, commitment, uh, you know, uh, sponsorship from the stakeholders, involvement of a lot of people around to build, as Abhay said. I think that is a bigger challenge, and you have to have patience to build it again, and don't rush into drawing conclusion very, very fast. But I think if you're dealing with the biased data, I think that can be handled. I don't think that's a big issue in today's world.
Just to add a couple of perspectives to what Rahul and Abhay said. One is, let's get away, with this mentality of, having a perfect data. It's never going to happen. That too in HR, it's not going to happen. But if you have a right question, you can use a sampling techniques to, come up with an answer. Sometimes even the sample size can be, 15 to 20%. You don't need to have all the 100 rows of information. So sampling is one technique that you can really use, to prove your hypotheses or to disprove it. Now, the second part is the listening strategy, which is what is building the new information. So when you know that, this is the area, let's say, it can be employee surveys or the well-being or engagement. So if you don't have it, you can start building it. So that's where the listening strategy is really coming out aloud along with the people analytics strategy, because both can't be separated. And right now, even in our company, we call our function as employee experience and people analytics, because on one side we design, and on the other side we harness it. So yeah.
Thank you, Vilash. Thank you, Abhay. Thank you, Rahul. Okay, so over to Payal. Payal, any more questions that you want to take us?
No, thank you so much. I think we have had a good session. So thank you, Naresh, and I would also like to extend a thank you to all our panelists for having such an engaging and insightful session. I hope all our participants have enjoyed it and must have taken good learnings from this session today. I now would like to request Mr. Govind Singh Negi, our founder, to please express a vote of thanks to all our participants and the panelists.
Yeah, thank you, Payal. And I think more than a founder, I was listening it as a business and talent leader for an IT company. And I can tell this is a new era of the way HR can place itself in the business. And I don't think many of the company have reached to the stage where the panelists were sharing their views. And I believe that I have been interacting with companies where I think the HR is very mature, but not, or very, very few of them have this kind of maturity in terms of HR analytics. I think if, like, we keep talking about HR being a business partner and how HR can help and align with the business. What I hear from this speaker is like the one of the perfect way by which we can do so. Like if HR can speak the language of data and facts and figures, along with, of course, empathy and all, I think the impact they can create on the business is huge. I was listening to an answer where how HR analytics can help in recruitment, and I'm sure when you go through the YouTube videos, there are so many examples like that which the speakers on this panel have spoken about, where HR analytics can really play a role in different aspects of human resources. So I think, honestly speaking, it's an eye opener for me and for many other business and HR leader on this call, that it is the time when we need to start learn these tools, leverage them, and make best out of it. And I'm sure that a lot of global leaders who are on this call today will also get benefited out of that conversation. So thank you very much from core of my heart. I really mean it. This was such an intense, mature conversation from all the speakers and panelists. And I think the kind of experience they get specifically from the field had made this webinar very, very informative and knowledgeable for everybody who has joined it. So thank you very much to all the speakers and panelists. And Naresh, thank you very much for moderating it such a professional way and making sure that we are asking the right questions, we are taking the questions and making sure we are also respecting time for everybody, and Payal for hosting this event so well, and everybody on the audience to give their Saturday for such an informative session here. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Govind. Thank you, Payal.
Thank you, Govind. Now, as a part of our ritual, I would request Nirpesh to please take a group photograph of all of us, and then we can conclude our session.